Welcome to Government Contracting Weekly, sponsored by AOC Key Solutions Incorporated. Government Contracting Weekly is the only television program devoted exclusively to the competitive and dynamic world of government contracting. A world where coming in second place is not an option, but where principle-centered winning is the only approach.
Good morning and welcome to Government Contracting Weekly. I'm your host, Hilary Fordwich. This morning, I'm delighted to have with me Dr. Nick Nayak, the Chief Procurement Officer for the Department of Homeland Security. Nick Nayak took over his position in September of 2010, and each year has presided in awarding an average of approximately $13 billion to the contracting community, while also transforming the department into what many describe as a model of procurement excellence. Let's meet Dr. Nick Nayak and also two of his colleagues, Jose Arrieta, Procurement Ombudsman, and Bob Namejko, Industry Liaison, both from the Department of Homeland Security. Good morning. I'm delighted to have with us this morning three phenomenal individuals from the Department of Homeland Security. Firstly, Dr. Nick Nayak, who is the Chief of all of procurement there. Thank you, Nick, for coming out.
Thank you.
And also Jose Arrieta, who's the Procurement Ombudsman. Good morning, Jose.
Good morning.
And also Bob Namejko, and he is the Industry Liaison. Good morning, Bob.
My pleasure.
Thank you for coming out this morning, gentlemen. I'd like to start so that our audience has a perspective on what backgrounds do you bring, what is your expertise, and what are you doing at the department? So if you could share a little about your background, Dr. Nayak, if you could start first, your background, and what is it you've come to Homeland Security to achieve, because you've got quite some track record already.
So the background in a nutshell is I grew up in family businesses. My career in government contracting started when I got out of college. I worked for two companies, a large company and a small company, both in business development. Then I came into the government, and I've been in the government with three agencies, DHS being where I'm at currently, all awarding contracts, doing everything with respect to contracting on the government side. So my primary goal in coming to DHS is to, the overarching goal for all of us is to buy things to protect the country at the least cost to the taxpayer, while achieving public policy objectives. So that's kind of the tagline, at the top.
And you've made a huge difference, so thank you for the impact you've already made.
Thank you, and the difference that I'm making is really with gentlemen like these guys sitting next to me, as well as, and if I could, because we only have a handful of days left here in this fiscal year, and we've got people who are working very hard actually on both sides, on my side and the government side awarding contracts, and then on industry side working proposals in response to some of the things that we're looking to get here at the end of the year. So it's really all of those folks.
All the employees, all the procurement team.
All the procurement team, all of industry working together to help us get things to protect the country. And it's a privilege for me to be part of leading that.
Well, you are protecting the country, and we're going to get into a lot of those issues. Thank you for that intro. And over to you, Jose, your background and what you've come to achieve.
Well, thank you, Hillary. I actually also started in family business, and I moved to Washington, D.C., and I was a sales representative for about 6 to 8 months. And then I got offered a job at the General Services Administration. So I spent
GSA.
5 or 6 years at GSA as a contracting officer with an unlimited warrant, mainly supporting military clients, and then moved into TSA as a IT program manager. I thought the future is in information technology. I really wanted to work as a program manager. I spent a couple years there, and I was lucky enough to see an opportunity at DHS. I wanted to get back into procurement. I felt that, with my understanding of program management
and transportation as well combined
would be beneficial, and I really was excited about the opportunity to kind of be at the focal point of engaging with industry. And what I do for the department is really listen to industry. Nick says it really well. In government contracting, there are three things that really manage everything we do. The first is public policy, the second is procurement law, and the third is industry. Our folks, we have 1,400 professionals in our workforce, they fully understand procurement law, they get a lot of training in public policy, but they rarely receive much training or insight on how industry does business, and that's my job, is to actually help transform our folks so that they understand industry better, so that we can work better with industry as we buy things to protect the country.
Collaboratively and most effectively and efficiently, yeah. Bob.
My career started with the Department of the Navy way back during the Vietnam War era. I spent 5 years with the Naval Sea Systems Command, later the SPA War. I left to become a program manager for a very small company, and for the next 33 years, I did everything from program management to business development for large and small companies. 7 years ago, I decided to come back into the government, and I went to work for Customs and Border Protection as a contract specialist. While at CBP, there was a need for a small business specialist in the Washington area, so I took that job on. Right about a year after that, Dan Gordon came out with his Mythbusters as far as better vendor communication, and at that time, the person in charge of CBP's procurement, John Ely, made me the business liaison. And my job was not only to work with small businesses, but to work with large businesses. That I eventually parlayed into the job that I have right now, working for Dr. Nayak. And as industry liaison, I consider myself as a facilitator. Whenever a company wants to talk to somebody, so often they feel that they don't have a pair of ears that will listen to them.
Right.
And what Dr. Nayak decided was that we really need to communicate better with industry. So I and Jose have that responsibility. We meet with as many companies as want to meet with us. And we may not be able to solve their problems, but at least we could guide them to one of the 9 components within DHS. Hopefully, they can then make use of those people to get their product and service sold to the government.
And you're working very collaboratively also, and this morning gives you a great opportunity for all of our audience to hear your message. Thank you. There are those that do believe that the contracts market is somewhat broken, but DHS has a reputation for having excellence in procurement. I'd like to turn it to you gentlemen and say, what do you think? Do you think that the contracts environment at DHS still needs a lot of fine-tuning? How broken was it? Where is it today? And how would you answer that for the marketplace? Dr. Nayak, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think fine-tuning is what I would say. Government contracting is tough stuff. And it's always going to be tough stuff.
And it's not just America, across the globe, actually. In all countries have the same issues.
And it's very similar to any business. It's tough for businesses to get themselves going, but once they get themselves going, they have a niche, they have a value proposition, and some staying power. Generally speaking, things work well. But in DHS, with respect to contracting, it's fine-tuning, really. Now, why? Because the last 7 years, our total spending has been relatively stable, between about $12 to $14 billion. For the most part, we know what our major programs are moving forward. And one more key detail, and that is, if we continue to, our government continues to be funded by continuing resolutions, then typically you have no new programs that come into existence. So
stability has been a key to some of your success.
So stability is a key to this success. And however, having said that, my 4 priorities as Chief Procurement Officer, working along with the 9 heads of contracting in DHS, are to have quality people doing quality contracting to support quality programs that protect the United States of America, and then having quality communication with industry, because if you're in one of the top 7 spenders in government that spend 90% of the $500 billion, and we're always one of the top 7 spenders, then and you're buying things to protect the country, then you've got to communicate as much as possible, because it is a very clear partnership in doing things to protect the country. There's nowhere you'll go, or let me just say this, everywhere you go where you're able to see something that Homeland Security is doing to protect the country, you're going to see some Homeland Security employee, and you're also going to see some contractor support that we're using or bringing to bear to protect the country. So I would say fine-tuning, and we're fine-tuning within those 4 quality areas. So we're doing newer things to make our people the best they can absolutely be. We're doing things in order to get a good deal for the taxpayer, quality contracting. We're doing some very interesting things in terms of program oversight and risk management. And then finally, and you know you've heard me speak about this quite a bit if you actually just go out on the internet, we're doing all kinds of things and everything we can to communicate with industry.
Yeah, and that's where you have your team and you have an industry liaison as well. But what about the oversight? What about being an ombudsman, Jose? How does that fit into also being very collaborative with industry? Because you are looking over and checking what they're doing as well. And more regulation means sort of antipathy from the marketplace.
And I think part of being an ombudsman is communicating with the industry community. And one thing I'd like to say about the DHS market is it's highly competitive, right? So we have 21,000 contracts. We do business with 15,000 companies. Every year, 3,000 small businesses receive a first-time award. So it's a market that once you win a contract award, you have to be thinking, as a business, you have to be thinking about what you're going to do next to position yourself to grow within that marketplace. And think of the nature of our mission. You know, we're reacting to threats, to natural disasters. So we have to be able to change to meet that mission.
On a dime.
On a dime. And that means that companies that do business in our marketplace have to realize that it's highly competitive. And if you think about Nick's 4 priorities, that's why Bob and I are so important, because we have to constantly remind companies that this is the nature of the market that they're competing in.
But you attract the nimble. I think that's part of the success also. There's stability, but you're attracting nimble.
Exactly.
And you're also attracting people that are dedicated to this nation, because a lot of them have been served in the forces and want to protect our nation.
Well, that's a very good point, because in relation to government contracting, and there's a wonderful report that the Center for Strategic and International Studies, actually a great guy named David Berteau, produces every year about Homeland Security. About 40% of the contracts that we award go to large business, 30% to small businesses, and depending on your definition of mid-sized businesses, about 30%. So 40, 30, 30.
Which is a great breakout.
Which is a great breakout.
Yes, it is. What about in terms of industry then, getting the message across? You mentioned, Bob, Dan Gordon's Mythbusters memo years ago, which people still refer to, and he actually came on the show, and he was able to literally bust a lot of the common myths that contractors don't really get about what's going on. What is the message that you're trying to get out that you can share with our audience about what's really happening at Homeland Security?
I think one of the major misconceptions that wasn't even part of the Mythbusters campaign is that every company believes that they have something that's special that no other company has.
People think they're unique as well, right, yes.
And we meet with so many companies that want to meet with a program office, they want to meet with the contracting officer, they want to meet with whoever so they could sell what they have because they believe they're the best in the business. And the truth of the matter is that most of the companies that are out there selling have the same sort of capability. And what we try to tell them is, what are your differentiators? What makes you different than the next door neighbor?
And don't say quality people.
Right, and the quality people, or I'm CMMI, or I have this, I have that certification.
So does everybody else.
So does everybody else. And the other thing that we try to tell them is, don't bring in a capability statement. Everybody's capability statement looks the same. We need to know what you do better than somebody else.
Results, track record. Yeah.
Correct.
What have you achieved? What have you actually done? Yes.
Correct.
So make sure you have those differentiators.
And the other thing I might just add is just niche. Just like in the real world with businesses, what is your niche? What is the value proposition? Sometimes when we're buying products, there is a real niche. And so market that.
So market your niche, be special, and make sure you have a specialty that is very clearly differentiated from the competition. Dr. Nayak has mentioned and spoken of many times the one Entreprise. He wants DHS to be one Entreprise. Could you explain for our audience, in case they haven't heard, what you mean by that? What does it mean to your employees, to all of the procurement team that works with and for you, but also to industry? What does that mean?
So I would say that the larger point is our former secretary, and I think this concept continues and it's been driven through the culture, is what can we do in any leadership position in DHS in order to bring a oneness to all of DHS? So everybody knows we have several and many agencies that make up the Department of Homeland Security. So then in my world, in contracting, when I came in, one of the things that I wanted to work on was what can I do within the contracting community to bring everybody together. I was very fortunate Again, we have 9 heads of contracting. I have a council, and we get together monthly and look at things that we need to do to sort of improve overall in terms of our 1,400 contracting employees that are awarding more than 100,000 contract actions that total, as I mentioned before, $12 to $14 billion a year.
It's vast.
So it's vast. So one of the things that we did, and the other thing is we wanted to sort of be as clear as we possibly could in whatever we were going to do to demonstrate our oneness and then be completely transparent. So I brought with me a couple of documents today. One is a strategic plan that we worked on within our lane, contracting. And then we have an annual progress report against that strategic plan. It's on the internet for any American taxpayer
Public
to look at.
information, so contractors could look at it and see where you're going and your vision and what you want.
Yes,
Yeah.
and so they can very clearly see in the DHS contracting community, that means all contracting officers in DHS, these are the priorities that we subscribe to, and I mentioned the 4 quality people to do quality contracting, to support quality programs, and then have very good communication with industry. And we have a number of initiatives to support those priorities, and then metrics against those initiatives, because ultimately the question is, okay, Nick, I hear you saying that you buy things to protect the country at the least cost to the taxpayer. You've got to follow public policy objectives. But how do you know anything is better from year to year? And that's why we have those metrics out there.
Which helps you with improvement.
With improvement. And so in terms of the oneness, we issued the strategic plan about a couple and a half years ago. Again, we do these annual progress reports. I send them out 1 time a year to the entire workforce. Then I go behind it and I speak to it, recognize employees for doing things, for moving the metrics in the right direction.
And that's public information as well.
Once again,
that you can see.
public information, because in terms of continuous improvement, and the reason why we have an annual progress report is that we're tweaking the initiatives and the metrics all the time. And that would be kind of under that label of fine-tuning.
And then our audience, smart government contractors, if they're looking at that and reading that, they're seeing your directive, they can anticipate what it is you want and where to go. So that is collaborative in of itself,
Yes.
if they know that's there and they go to it.
Yes.
Does that help you in terms of your conversation with industry, Bob?
It helps a lot, but one of the problems that industry has in dealing with DHS is we are one DHS, but we're really 9 separate components, and you can't really sell just to DHS, the mothership. You have to sell what you have to each of the individual components, and that's difficult for industry to understand a lot of times. They just assume, especially if they haven't done business, if they're coming from the DoD world where they only dealt with the Navy,
One
or
customer,
they knew who that customer was. You really have 9 different customers whenever you deal with DHS, and you need to know what each of those categories or those components do and what they're buying before you could really go out and market yourself. And
So really what you said
important.
before about your differentiators, you need to know how to tailor your differentiator for that particular buyer.
Not only that, we often find that a lot of the companies that come in can't even really spell CBP or FEMA or whatever. So they really need to do their homework to know what we're buying and when we're buying it.
And particularly how different it is. Yes, Jose.
I was just going to say, and part of doing your homework is there's a lot of information out there on DHS, whether it's GAO, IG, whether you may use a FOIA to look at a contract that was
General,
awarded
that's all
before.
public information too.
It's all
Yeah.
public information, and if you want to position yourself and something that you do really well, go in and understand what CBP's problems are, understand what pressure Congress is putting on CBP leadership, and understand how your value proposition actually fits in with that.
Because then you have the solution that you can provide.
Yeah,
But let's also have a little perspective here. 15,000 companies connected with DHS in fiscal year 2012. Of the 15,000, 3,000 connected for the first time.
Yeah.
So people are finding a way to connect.
They're on a learning curve.
They're on a learning curve. And then to Bob's point, DHS is no different than any other cabinet level agency that has several agencies underneath it. You always have to go and learn the particular customer. Yes, there's some commonality. In our lane in contracting, you can see it through our strategic
But there
plan.
are nuances, is what you're saying,
There
and it's
are.
government contractors pay attention to those nuances, know what they are, read about them, because all that information is basically there. So this morning you're going to get the good news and the good news. There are opportunities where there's going to be robust procurement. The question is where? Where within the Department of Homeland Security? We know that, of course, the department is in the position to prevent terrorism, secure our borders, but maybe, Jose, you can address for our audience, what are some of those growth areas? Where do you see some robust procurement within the Department of Homeland Security?
So everybody knows that immigration is a topic of interest and cybersecurity is a topic of interest. What I'd like to focus on is the operational delivery of how we protect the country. And if you look at DHS from that perspective, there'll be some opportunities around vetting, around credentialing. We buy a lot of air and maritime vehicles to actually achieve our mission. And we buy them across the entire department, across all 9 contracting activities. And as we start to look at these different areas as one entity, there's going to be a lot of work. So, I mean, how do you take a bunch of vetting? You know what vetting is, right? It's sorting through unstructured data.
Vetting is going through what we hope we do also for those that work for government contractors too, vet them.
Sort through structured data and identify threats. Well, if you do vetting in 9 different agencies, it makes sense that you can start to pull those different systems together and make them operate as one. It makes you more effective. So there's professional services work associated that. There's IT support necessary for that. So there's a lot of activity around those areas. So I would tell government contractors to look at our budget and look at areas we're focusing in on being competitive over the next 5 or 6 years. And I think you'll find opportunities beyond immigration and cyber, which I think everybody knows is a hot area.
Yes, Bob.
Well, the other area that I think that companies ought to look into that I don't think they spend enough time is that the fact that we are, for the most part, a very personnel-oriented agency. You know, we have over 200,000 personnel. We have how many Border Patrol agents, and a lot of what we buy is related to the Border Patrol, at least in CBP, related to what the Border Patrol uses, what they wear, the equipment, the vehicles, those kinds of things. And then if you also look at the Coast Guard, you know, they buy ships. You know, we do a lot of things that people don't necessarily assume is just a Homeland Security function.
It's broader, and it's not going away.
And it's not going away, and it's going to get bigger. And if we hire more Border Patrol agents, there's going to be more opportunities. So I just think that you need to look at what Congress is saying the Department of Homeland Security needs to do. We have a southern border. We have a very robust northern border. We have a lot of things that are going on that you need to be able to, as a company, go in and say, where are we headed 5 years from now? Where are we headed 10 years from now? And a lot of, even though we only get money for 1 year, we have a 1 year budget, 1 year budget, cycle. 1 year budget, 1 year cycle. The fact is that there are opportunities out there, and there will be opportunities out there in the future.
And more, which is great to hear. And in terms of those 200,000 procurement officers that you have, what are you doing in terms of there are so many opportunities, so many companies work. What are you doing in advising to them of how they should be trained and stay up on issues?
Okay, so that's a great question. First of all, I need to clarify. We have 1,400 contracting people in DHS, so not 200,000.
Okay.
There's more than 200,000 total employees in DHS doing things to protect the country.
Not just procurement.
Right, and Bob mentioned the people on the border and so forth and so on. But procuring the roughly $12 billion worth of contracts annually, 100,000 contract actions, is only 1,400 people in 9 contracting organizations. So your question was, what are we doing in terms of training them? And the answer is we've got a Homeland Security Acquisition Institute. We provide all of the training that's required for the various certification levels that are put out by the Office of Federal Procurement Policy and Joe Jordan. But we go beyond that. We've started a number of sort of training seminars. They will be webinars as well. To sort of sprinkle in a little bit of industry knowledge into our training. So some of the things that these gentlemen are working on, one of them is we've revamped our, so we look at the acquisition life cycle and we look at where our 1,400 contracting people connect with people in industry. I'll kind of start at the back part, debriefings. So debriefings are incredibly important for companies to learn what they did right, what they did wrong.
Meeting with your teams and coming and having that open dialogue.
Absolutely, and so one of the things we're doing in terms of our training, in addition to certifying people and getting them all of that training, is these additional supplemental seminars. Our debriefing training includes people from industry who actually participate in the training. We had about six sessions last year, and I'm looking forward to getting the entire workforce through that training possibly next fiscal year. So that's one thing we're doing. Another thing we're doing is we have industry seminars in general. So when industry wants to come in and sort of share with our workforce, this is what we go through in the bidding process, and we just want you to be aware. So as you're asking for things, as time frames for contract awards get dragged out, this is what we're going through.
So you're letting industry educate your team
On what's going on in their world, and we think that togetherness between
And that
industry
dialogue is
and that
good,
dialogue is
healthy.
going to enrich both sides.
Yes, that's wonderful.
And so those are just some of the things that we're doing.
As our regular viewers know, Key Solutions is the force behind this show, Government Contracting Weekly, and provides strategy, capture and proposal support services to government contractors. There are keys to winning, and now you can hear the government's perspective. What does Homeland Security think are the keys to winning? And Bob, I'd love to go to you first because you're on the pulse of industry as well. You see both sides. You know what it takes to win. Succinctly, can you just tell our audience, what does it take for them to win? What are those keys?
I would think the major key is to know your customer, know what their requirements are, and do the best that you can in presenting your case as to why you're better than your competitor.
So clear differentiation for whoever you're speaking to.
Correct.
And there are many audiences within that Department of Homeland Security. Thank you, Bob. And Jose, what would you suggest to our audience?
I'd say you have to develop a plan and a pipeline, and you have to focus on the opportunities over a 3-year period and don't deviate from your plan. So if you are focused on high risk, high dollar value contracts, and CBP and TSA are your 2 customers, develop a solid pipeline for TSA and CBP and focus all your energy on working to fully understand what you need to understand about these two organizations to win a contract.
So don't dilute and try to diversify. Focus.
Focus.
Yes. And Dr. Nayak, what would you say to our audience?
First of all, I would say I enjoyed being here, and simply put, I would say watch this show.
Oh, how about that? Okay, thank you. No, for your, and that is for your also the members of your procurement team as well as the audience.
In fact, it's something that I'm going to encourage. Your episodes that you have here are they're like a free education, sort of like almost a PhD's worth of knowledge for industry and for government. And as you know, one of my priorities is bringing industry and government closer together in terms of communicating.
We are delighted that we were able to bring you so much specific, relevant content regarding how to do business with the Department of Homeland Security. Our thanks again go out to Dr. Nick Nayak, Jose Arrieta, and Bob Namejko from the Department of Homeland Security. And our thanks goes out to you, our viewers, for making us a regular part of your learning regimen. We hope to see you all right back here next week.
You've been watching Government Contracting Weekly, sponsored each week by AOC Key Solutions Incorporated. Government Contracting Weekly is the only television program devoted exclusively to the competitive and dynamic world of government contracting. For additional information, comments, questions, or suggestions, please write us at governmentcontractingweekly.com.